Hello, everybody. John Clinker here with BizJets and Bush Planes. I look a little bit different today, different headset and different environment, but we're going to try something a little new and different. I'm planning to do a series of videos where I recreate real world flights that I've done in a Citation 10 or in the Kit Fox, but recreate them on Microsoft Flight Simulator where I can really interact and take you along and show you some real specific things and talk about it, and then all of you flight simmers can go ahead and recreate these flights and do them yourself on Microsoft Flight Sim. I thought it'd be a really fun way to utilize the simmers and reach out to a lot of people and interact with people that don't necessarily fly for a living, but fly virtually in the Microsoft Flight Simulator realm. We're going to be using the Flight FX C750 today, which I had the joy and the privilege of helping develop. The sounds of the Flight FX aircraft are actual sounds from my salary gig airplane, and a lot of the photos and everything, they came out, they flew with us on a trip to collect photos and data and videos. This was a year and a half ago, and I've been able to help them develop it along the way, so it's been really exciting. So first try with this headset, I probably didn't have it set up right. It's probably not recording my audio, so the audio might be a little off using the GoPro, but we'll see what we get out of it. So bear with me since I'm new to this whole virtual thing, but let's get started. So this first flight I wanted to show you is going to be from Mammoth Lakes to a little airport called Desert Center. And you may or may not have heard of it because it is out in the middle of the desert. And the cool thing about this airport is that it doubles as a racetrack. So it's mostly a drag strip, but doubles as an airstrip. So that's pretty cool. So this was a real interesting trip when I got the phone call asking me if we could do this. Doing a little bit of contract flying on the side, I get to experience things that I would normally never get to experience with my main gig. And so it's pretty fun to be able to do some of this contract flying and experience things you wouldn't otherwise experience. So here we are, Textron Aviation Citation X, Citation 10 with winglets, painted up in our new livery, which is pretty exciting. So we're going to adjust the fuel level and everything using the EFB in the sim. But we're going to set up a route and get going. So I'll put that into the FMS in the sim here. So, okay, on a separate video, I'll go through the process of actually setting up the computers and do a basically cold and dark startup with the airplane. But in the interest of time, we're not going to worry about that today. We're just going to start up with the airplane already ready to go. I'll still go ahead and input the FMS and build a flight plan here. We're starting up all ready to go. So departure is going to be off of runway 27. All right, we're going to do the Crowley 1 shafter transition. Activate, and our landing there. So here is the tricky part. Oh, CN64 is in there, which is great, which is actually really helpful because we had to actually build it during the flight down here by doing a point bearing distance and create it as a destination airport, build the runway and all the things in order to make this happen the first time. So that's kind of nice that it's actually there in this database, including the runway 23. That just made things a lot simpler. So we'll plan on that, and I'm going to activate that, do our performance in it. Now I'm going to go to this EFB here and go to our weights. 175, 175. We'll just put our fuel up at, we'll make it, 6145 will be. That will work great. So we will apply that. This EFB is really handy for your loadouts here. And after shafter, we'll just go direct. So we'll go back to performance in it. Climb 300, cruise max speed. Why not? Descent. We're going to make that 340. Cruise max speed. Put in 29,000 feet as our cruise altitude. Two packs. Fuel is that. We're going to delete that, and then it should match up with our gauge. It does. Confirming it. And let's do our takeoff. Runway 27. We'll give it calm winds. Next, flaps 15. NICE off, confirm, and should have some takeoff numbers. There they are, 21, 24, and 30. Flight plan. What I'm going to do here also, after shafter, I'm going to see if it'll let me do this. I'll just probably build it like this. Build myself a 3-mile final and see if it'll let me put that in. Yep, looks like it did. And I'm just going to bring this up here. And I apologize for the delay in the display. It's a computer issue, not an aircraft issue. All right, that's all set there. And there's the departure. So we are in flaps 15. And I'm going to go activate takeoff go around mode here with the toga button. That'll bring the bars up into takeoff mode, and I'm also going to do nav for this departure. Now let's see if they have any altitude restrictions. That's an above, that's an above, that's an above. So cool, no altitude restrictions, which means we're just gonna get up and go. We'll go to MFD setup, vertical profile. That's what I like to see. And all right, I'm ready if you are. And let's just go ahead and bring our altitude up to flight level 290. We have this nice little, if you've played with the Flight FX Citation 10 yet, the 750, it has these really nice little grabbers up here on these screws, so you don't have to go looking all over the cockpit to find places to change your heading and your CDI. You can just do it right there, which is really, really handy. All right, well, what do you say we get going here, everybody? So let's look up here. We're already on runway 27. Sort of lined up, but let's get going. See if I have any no takeoff notes. I do. Probably my parking brake. No, I just turned it on. Probably my trim setting. Let me see what it is. Yep, my trim setting. I should know better. See, I'm just skipping checklists today. One of these days I'll do a real in-depth one where I actually follow our checklist. See, that's the importance of checklists right there. Follow your checklist, everybody. I'm a professional, but I don't really look like it right here. All right, we are all set to go, and let's do this. Have a look at this beautiful jet. Oh, it's just so pretty. So pretty. And let's light them up. Here we go. Airspeed's alive. $80 knots. Thrust is set. There's V1. And rotate. And away we go. Pick up the gear. Accelerate. Got a little nose up while I was screwing with the gear. So at 400 feet, we'll bring the flaps up. That'll bring the flaps and the slats up. And to help me fly this departure, I'm just gonna turn on autopilot. Woo! She's so pretty. Okay, to talk about this mission, I kind of hinted at it at first. I got a phone call asking if I could do a flight out to this airport called Desert Center. And so first thing I usually do when I get a phone call like that is I bring up my ForeFlight and I have a look at what the airport looks like. And on ForeFlight, it says it's, I think it said it was 4,200 feet long, which is frankly pretty short for a Citation 10, especially one I'm not familiar with, and 50 feet wide. So the skinniest runway I've ever landed on a Citation 10 is 75 feet. I hadn't done 50 feet before, and then I find out that it's an actual drag strip. So wait a minute, it's a drag strip? Yeah, it's a drag strip, but oh, don't worry about it. People land on it all the time. Okay, but your Citation 10s land on it. So now I'm in the collecting information phase, and I'll show you some of the text threads of the collecting information phase. It was pretty entertaining, but long story short, as we started having conversations with the airport manager, we got more and more information from him. No, it's not 50 feet wide. It's actually 75 feet wide. We've had it widened and we've had it lengthened. I believe it was lengthened. Gotta check now. It was a little while ago. And oh, there we go. So now we're up above 180. Just went through 180. So I'm gonna go standard on the altimeter settings, 2992. And so long story short, the trip started to look more and more feasible. Like, okay, am I really going to go land a Citation 10 on a drag strip? It's looking like I might get to do that. That sounds awesome, assuming it can be done safely and without causing any damage to the airplane. And so leading up to the trip, talking to the airport manager, he says, oh yeah, we will have been doing drag racing on the strip the evening before, but don't worry about it. We'll make sure to blow all the rubber off of the runway prior to your arrival. Okay. So now I'm picturing debris, rocks, gravel, rubber from the tires all over the runway. Don't worry about it. We'll make sure the runway is plenty clean for you. We do this all the time. And so now you're kind of in this situation where you're taking his word for it. You don't know for sure, but you're doing your diligence. But this guy operates this runway as an airport and a drag strip. So sounds like he kind of knows what he's doing. And so talking with the co-pilot, I was going to fly PIC on this leg. So talking to him, he came up with a plan of attack. He's like, okay, according to the performance numbers, which do not use the thrust reversers in their calculations, we have the distance available. We'll use brakes only, and we will not apply thrust to the thrust reversers. I'll only use them as air brakes. And so the plan was to deploy the thrust reversers, but not apply any engine thrust to the thrust reversers, just idle reverse. So they're just used for aerodynamic braking. Be more heavy on the hydraulic foot actuated brakes versus using the thrust reversers to slow down. And distance calculations all worked out. Like, okay, if this is a normal runway, we can make the distance, we can get it stopped based on the numbers. So that's a go. And eventually, as the development went on, we went from no, 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 no to go, 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 go. And so we decided we were gonna do it. So here we are en route, Mammoth Lakes. We're doing this whole approach here. This whole departure. Crowley, and then it's gonna send us over to Shafter, just so you can see how the airplane does it. About to level off at 290. Could have put in VNAV for the climb, where it should have targeted the aircraft speed targeted the speed in the box of 300 knots, but here we are leveling off anyway. In the turn for Shafter. Okay, so after talking to the airport manager, we found out that yes, he was going to clear the runway of any debris prior to our arrival, but there was going to be a charity bike riding event happening on the morning of our arrival. And so, of course, it's a private airport. It's not in the FMS database. It's private, so that's why we had to coordinate all this with the manager. Said, no problem. On your way in, just give me a call on this frequency, on the CTAF, and I'll make sure that the runway is now also clear of bicyclists. Like, okay, sounds cool. And then he said, if for whatever reason my radio doesn't work or we can't establish two-way communication back and forth, that I can confirm that the runway is clear, I'll be right there and just do a low pass of the runway, and you can make sure it's clear of bicyclists, and that'll be my signal to make sure that everybody is cleared of the runway, and it won't take me long to make sure everybody is off. Okay, that sounds awesome. This is getting better and better. Start slowing down a little bit. High 20s, we're not going to necessarily be able to do Mach 0.90, but we'll set in the cruise detent here. Mach 0.87 is a target speed. That's pretty darn good. And so the co-pilot and I on the way down there were hoping that we wouldn't get a response on the radio, because, you know, anytime you're actually invited to do a low pass, you're hoping you get to actually do the low pass. Okay, CN64, the elevation is 559 feet, so we'll make our pattern altitude an even 2,000. I'll just pre-select that here. In cruise, we're not going to go down, but I'll show you how to do a VNAV path down to a specific target altitude. So we'll make our pattern altitude 2,000 feet. And that's going to be our next assigned altitude, essentially, because we would have gotten our descent and then canceled IFR as well. There's Shafter, there's top of descent. And what we're going to do is make sure the altitude at runway 23. Okay, it's a large font, so that tells us that we'll be able to build a 3-degree glide path all the way down. So that's cool. And to save time, I will go ahead and speed up the rate a little bit. Our top of descent is past Shafter, so we got a little bit of time. As you can see, the Flight FX crew did an incredible job with this airplane, and they're continually adding features. They're continually refining it, continually making it more and more realistic and more spot on to the real thing. And with this high simulation rate, it's struggling to handle this turn, of course, but that's to be expected. All right, so we're in nav, VNav, and currently altitude hold. Because we have a lower altitude set on our altitude pre-selector, this will automatically intercept the vertical path here at our top of descent and will start us on the way down for the descent. So you need a lower altitude set in your pre-selector, you need to be in VNav mode and also nav mode, and it will grab that top of descent. Oh, that's not good. I have a setting right now to not burn fuel for some of my bush flying adventures. So that is a little unrealistic. I haven't burned any fuel because of that simulator setting I have. So let's go ahead and adjust it to where it would be at this point. So we'll bring it down to, I'll just bring it down to 4865. It wouldn't be that low yet, but it would be about that low upon our landing. Okay, let's make sure that our landing in it is done. So we'll go down here. Arrival, runway 23, perf, landing, and let's just call it 32 degrees. It's pretty warm that day, and we'll just make the winds calm. And next, runway's going to be dry, nice little slope. And check out our landing data. It says we're going to use 3346 out of 4170, which tells us we can do it. And, oh, that's one thing I wanted to check. Landing next. Next, landing data. Ref is 121 and V approach is 126. That's sounds actually very, very accurate to what it would be like in the real world. All right, here we go. We'll zoom in. We're about to hit our top of descent. There it is. There's our top of descent vertical track. So you'll see once we intercept that top of descent point, the airplane will track that 3-degree glide slope down, and then our job is to reduce the thrust because it will overspeed. We don't have auto throttles. That is an option in the sim. It is an STC on the actual Citation 10, but not many people have done it. Of course, the 10 Plus does have auto throttles, but no big deal. I just like to manipulate the thrust levers myself. So here we go. Here comes our vertical track alert. That looks like the typical rate you would see in the real world, so I'm going to assume that my simulation rate is at 1.0. There's VPath flashing, and VPath now captured. So we are on our way down. Reduce some thrust on the engines so we don't overspeed. We're now in the descent for Desert Center. So this is the Chuckwalla Valley, home of the famous Chuckwalla Raceway. And for all you non-sim pilots, don't worry, I do have some actual footage of our landing there at the airport, taken by one of the bike riders who then airdropped it over to me. So it's pretty cool. So here we are in the descent into Desert Center. Throughout this project, they would send me texts and messages to record this sound and that sound, and I remember late in the project they had me even record the sound of the parking brake lever being actuated, and then go back into the cabin and record the sound of the cabin table opening and closing. It's pretty phenomenal, all the immersion that they put into this project. And I'm not much of a flight simmer lately. I used to play all the time when I was younger, but family and kids and everything has kept me otherwise distracted, so I haven't been able to play much, or else I'd be taking us back into the cabin for a cabin tour and opening the tables and listening to all the cool sounds. I don't know how to do that right now. Other people sail through that like it's nothing, but I forget how. So please, all you simmers, give me a bunch of tips. I want comments. Leave me tips in the comments of how to, for example, know what simulation rate I'm running, or how to go in the back and have a seat while I'm on autopilot and open the table and, you know, have a drink. Non-alcoholic, of course. Let me know how to do that, because I don't know how. I forget all those things, sadly. So I'm looking to elevate my simulation game, and I'm counting on all you virtual pilots to help me out with that. Obviously, I need to elevate my experience running a laptop and a chair and a cutting board for my joystick and all these things. Needs some work, but I'm going to work on it. All right, we are in the descent, going down through flight level 210 now, and we are 56 miles from our point right now. So it's going to start showing up here on our screen here shortly. If we raise the range, you'll see it right there. That's the 50-mile arc. We'll drop it down though. Coming over Tonopah, thermal. And everybody bear with me, because I have not actually done this yet at all on Flight Sim. I have never flown into this airport virtually. I have only done it in the real world. So bear with me. We'll see how this works. You get to experience this completely cold. Alright, so we don't get the check baro set message here. I'm going to adjust our altimeter setting. Just set it there to 2987 on this V path. And I remember when we did this trip the first time, since we had to build the airport based on point bearing distance, and build the runway and build the slope to get our runway distance numbers, we actually got there and we really struggled to find it at first. But eventually we saw it and were able to make the traffic pattern work, and did left traffic for runway 23. Also drag strip 2-3, and sure enough, it's a completely unmarked runway because it's a drag strip. It's completely unmarked. On ForeFlight, it says the runway is, like I said, 50 feet wide by 4,200 feet, asphalt fair condition. So it took a lot of conversations to ensure that the runway was actually in better shape than what ForeFlight, the ForeFlight data told us. But we're coming on in, and hopefully it looks like it looked the day we did it. We're starting to get down towards our 10,000 altitude. So usually in the jet, if I'm on a 3-degree glide path, going through about 12.5. If I'm at a cruise descent like this, if you bring your thrust all the way to idle, it will it'll start decelerating to 250 knots by the time you pass through 10,000. So we'll see how well that works. All right, it's not in this valley. I believe it's in that next valley over there. Okay, there's about 12.5. So we'll bring our thrust levers to idle, and we'll see where we end up with our 250 knot restriction at 10,000 feet. Okay, decelerating through 300 knots at 11.5. which looks like it's going to work out just fine. 280. 280 at 11,000 feet. And look at that. That deceleration is just spot on. I'm going to hit 250 right at 10,000 feet, which is exactly how I do it in the real world jet. I mean, that is absolutely perfect. Check that out. Coming through 10,000 feet right now, and we're at 247 knots. That's amazing how accurate that deceleration rate is. All right, here's where we're starting to get nervous. We got a bunch of these solar panels out in the desert, and we're trying to figure out where this airport is. I keep saying airport, but let's face it, it's a racetrack first before it's an airport. This feels so much like the real world flight that we did. It looks exactly the same. Okay, just like we did in the real world. I'm struggling to find it just yet. Okay, and there we have it. I see it now. It's right here. You see the racetrack, and then the runway is right there, which is actually the drag strip, and that's where we taxi off. So this is what we did. I'm going to disconnect the autopilot. You can do that with trim, but I'll just do it this way. We're going to overfly the field. Real world, we were a little lower when we did this, but we were making calls. He already insured us at this point that the runway was clear. Looks like the flight sim might depict it like an actual runway with real markings, but just realize those real markings are not actually there in the real world. Oh, we're going way too fast now. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, they're kind of goofy looking. Alright, at least they're goofy looking markings. And there it is. So now we're gonna bring in flaps 5. Would have normally done that sooner. Flaps 15 and bring the gear down. And go all the way to full flaps. Acceleration's a little faster than what I was used to, but that makes sense because I actually put it into a climb there in the turn since I'm not actually flying from the cockpit view. But now we're dirty. We're ready for this landing here at Desert Center. This was such a cool flight, everybody. That's why I wanted to do this one first. It's just really unique. There we're at 2,000. Start turning base. Start turning final. Okay, here we are on final. Get trimmed a little. slow. I shouldn't be this slow, but yeah, we're heavier than I was that day. Nose up. We're just gonna try to put it right here on the end. Actually, looks like a runway. And we're just gonna get it down, get the nose down, deploy the thrust reversers, hit the brakes, and we'll get it stopped. Get it stopped before we run into the Christmas tree, because it was still there. You can see the two chutes where they launched the dragsters, and the Christmas tree and everything was sitting there, fully set up for a drag race. Now in the real world, this was just a straight lane split line with no barriers, fortunately, in between. But right here, we're looking right into the launch pads for the dragsters, and then we had to make sure we raised our flaps here because they still had some concrete barriers up that we had to make sure our wings were going to clear. But then we did the long taxi in. And we also ensured that the runway could handle our weight and the ramp could handle our weight. And that's when he told me that they had Gulfstreams that had flown in here before. So that gave me the warm and fuzzy in that regard. So this airport was where General Patton and the Desert Fox did a bunch of training for North Africa, I believe. And so this is where they had this airport. Back in the day was actually an airport, and they would use this airport to supply all the needed weapons and tanks, and in order to support training for the North Africa invasion. And so the military barracks are still here. There's our guy. Not to run him over. Woo, brakes! We'll do it. All right, here we go. Cut off. Cut off left. Okay, there you can hear the PTU going, just like it should. Yoga, cut off right. All right, everybody. Hey, that was awesome. Thanks for coming along on this. This was really cool, and this was a really neat trip. And I'm gonna throw in some videos and some pictures of what we got to do during the day while we hung out waiting for our passengers here at Desert Center. So really, really neat airport. Awesome, super cool vibe out there, and we got to watch some pretty awesome racing as well. So all right, everybody, that's my first go at this, so sorry if it wasn't as good as some of the other virtual pilots out there, but I'm going to definitely improve my game and share some real-world experiences, maybe some tricky approaches, and some really interesting trips, and we'll have this whole virtual flying element to the YouTube channel where we can recreate accurately some of those real-world experiences I've been blessed to have over the years. So thank you, everybody. This was a really fun one. Landing a Citation 10 on a drag strip. Who knew? So thanks, everybody, for coming along. This was super fun. I'm looking forward to doing this more often. I might set up like a members section where I do a lot more of these, but still put a few of them on the normal section. But if you want more content like this, if I get the members section up and going, that's where I'll probably put a lot of these, just so a lot of the real world guys that aren't interested in virtual flying don't have to sit through some of the virtual stuff. But I think it's really cool, and I'm excited to do more of it. So thank you, everybody. Let's do this.